How different is the Thunderbolts from comics to screen?
I don't know.
The Thunderbolts have appeared in hundreds of Marvel comics, so there's a significant amount of lore surrounding this team. On screen, we've seen the team consist of characters played by Florence Pugh, the very Marvel names Sebastian Stan, Hannah John-Kamen, Wyatt Russell, David Harbour, and Lois Pullman, who have appeared in a number of MCU movies, shows, and even their own film. So let's find out how different they are from the comics to their appearances on screen. Let's start with the team itself. The Thunderbolts made their first appearance in 1996's Incredible Hulk issue 449, written and illustrated by Kurt Busiek and Mark Bagley. In the issue, Hulk and the very Marvel named Janice Jones are hit by a missile, but Janice is saved mid-fall by someone named Mac 1, someone who thinks Janice is prisoner to the Hulk. The missile's explosion leads to Hulk landing at a rodeo where he's confronted by Meteorite, Techno, Atlas, and Songbird, aka the Thunderbolts, ordering him to surrender. Surprisingly, the giant green rage monster does just this, allowing Songbird to trap him in a cage. However, Meteorite is suspicious of this and contacts their leader, Citizen V. And they have a right to be suspicious because the Hulk was just stalling so all the Thunderbolts would be in one place. He breaks free of the constraints and tries to escape, but is hit by another missile. The Hulk and Janice battle the Thunderbolts before realizing the team's mission is to protect civilians. So Hulk distracts them by destroying a dam, forcing the Thunderbolts to rescue the town. The team is successful in stopping the flood, concluding their first on-page mission. On the surface, the Thunderbolts seem like a team of heroes, but we later learn they're actually former members of the Masters of Evil, led by Baron Zemo. When the Avengers and Fantastic Four were presumed dead after facing Onslaught, the Thunderbolts emerged with the goal of tricking the public into believing they were heroes, while secretly taking over the world. Due to the praise the team received, they decided to turn against Zemo and become reformed heroes, taking the leader down with help from the returned Avengers and Fantastic Four. This is significantly different to what happened on screen, not just the lineup, but how they were formed together. As for how it all fell into place, Yelena Belova, Ava Starr, John Walker, and Antonio Dreykov were individually sent to unknowingly kill each other under the orders of Valentina Allegra de Fontaine to hide all the evidence of the Sentry project, which I'll talk about more shortly. Taskmaster was taken out, the others survived, but accidentally released Project Sentry. These individuals were able to realize the situation they were put in, leading to them teaming up, attempting to bring Fontaine down, but was stopped by the Sentry under Valentina's orders. The very Marvel named Bucky Barnes joined the cause due to mistrust in Valentina, while Alexei Shotsukov also came on board because he wanted to be on a box of Wheaties. The Sentry's powers increased and his personality changed to a dark path, but the Thunderbolts were able to stop him before Valentina took credit for bringing the team together, which after all was her mission all along, to find someone to replace the Avengers. As for the name Thunderbolts, that was thought up by Baron Zemo in the comics, being inspired by Thomas Randolph's poem, who wrote, "Justice, like lightning, ever should appear, to few men ruin, but to all men fear." In the MCU, the Thunderbolts name was based off Yelena's Pee-wee soccer team. However, the asterisk in the title of the movie was implying that they were actually the New Avengers. I don't believe they've ever been the New Avengers in the comics, but they have been referred to as the Avengers during the Dark Reign when Norman Osborn rebranded the Thunderbolts team into a group of Dark Avengers. The New Avengers first formed together in the comics after the Avengers disassembled. The Scarlet Witch lost control of her powers, causing the death of heroes and destruction of the Avengers Mansion. This led to Tony Stark deciding to not continue funding the Avengers operation. A short time later, there was a breakout at the Raft prison which housed supervillains. This led to a bunch of heroes showing up to contain the situation, those being Luke Cage, Steve Rogers' Captain America, Tony Stark's Iron Man, and the very Marvel named characters Matt Murdock's Daredevil, Peter Parker's Spider-Man, and Robert Reynolds' Sentry. Spider-Woman's Jessica Drew was also there, but she was later discovered to be the Skrull Queen who orchestrated the whole prison break. Though these heroes were able to stop many villains, 42 still managed to escape, which Steve Rogers believed was a sign to start a new team of Avengers to become Earth's mightiest heroes working together to stop threats no one hero could do alone, and without government oversight or financial backing. Thus starting the New Avengers. Over the years, the Thunderbolts team has changed, broken up, and formed together in a number of different ways, but some of the notable Thunderbolt groups from the comics include Norman Osborn's Thunderbolts, Red Hulk's Thunderbolts, Hawkeye's Thunderbolts, a team led by Luke Cage, another led by the Winter Soldier, and even one formed by the Kingpin. Each Thunderbolts team feels completely separate to one another, almost like each of them could have a different name, contrasting a team like the Avengers, where they always feel like an Avengers team, just with different members. But as for the characters in the MCU's Thunderbolts, let's see how different each of them are from page to screen.
Boo.
Yelena Belova trained at the Russian Red Room Academy to become one of the deadliest female spies in the world, like Natalia Romanova, someone she was obsessed with. But Yelena wanted to make her parents proud and become the greatest Black Widow of them all, something some would consider she achieved. She eventually broke free of the Russians' command when Romanova showed her she was being used. Over the years, Belova has worked for both good and evil organisations, but also doing her own thing. On screen, this is relatively similar, except Yelena was being kept under the Red Room's control via chemicals. She was able to break free from this when she was exposed to the chemical's antidote that she was assigned to recover. The first time Yelena joined the Thunderbolts wasn't in Thunderbolts issue 128, because we later learnt that was Natasha Romanova in disguise, ordered by Nick Fury to spy on the team. Belova actually joined the Thunderbolts in 2024's Thunderbolts Volume 5, issue 2. Another notable page-to-screen difference for the character is that her family is not Melina Vostokov, Alexei Shotsukov, or Natalia Romanoff in the comics. Instead, she has no biological or adopted sister, and her parents are unnamed.
It was real to me. You are my mother.
Speaking of Alexei Shotsukov, he was a Russian test pilot who was involved in an arranged marriage with Natasha Romanova before the pair became special operatives for the KGB. They wanted Alexei to become the Soviets' answer to Captain America, and was forced to cut off contact with everyone he knew, leading to Natasha being falsely told that he died in a rocket crash. The KGB trained Shotsukov's mind and body to become a ruthless soldier referred to as the Red Guardian. Upon his re-emergence into the world, he actually ended up becoming a notable foe to Black Widow. After a while, he saw the Soviets were manipulating people, including himself, so broke free of their command and sought to expose their corruption to the people of Russia. In the MCU, the Red Guardian was also the Soviets' answer to Captain America, but he was given a super strength serum to enhance his abilities, unlike the comics where it was just martial arts training. On page, Alexei was the wife of Natasha, but in the Black Widow movie, he was given an assignment which needed a fake family, and Nat was one of his daughters. When their cover was blown, Shotsukov started to fall out of favour with his general and ended up putting him in a Siberian prison, sparking his vengeance towards the Soviets. As for when he joined the Thunderbolts, that was in 2023's Thunderbolts Volume 5, Issue 1, when a new team was put together to raid Red Skull's castle. As Alexei wanted to end all forms of fascism, he was invited to join.
It still fits.
The origin of Ghost that has been told in the comics tells us about a data engineer whose name is redacted. He developed a computer chip known as Ghost Tech that would alter its physical state and allow it to store massive amounts of data. The feeding technology made the company extremely wealthy, but the engineer's girlfriend was killed when she threatened to expose the company's shady doings, including making her a call girl for their benefit. This death led to the engineer spiraling into a depression and ended up deliberately fusing himself with Ghost Tech to access data and solve all problems instantaneously. By becoming zeros and ones, he was able to learn the truth behind his girlfriend's death, leading to him enacting revenge. Over the years, Ghost was hired to take down tech companies, one of those being owned by Tony Stark, as seen in his first comic appearance, Iron Man issue 219, written and illustrated by David Michelinie and Bob Layton. The Ghost we see in the MCU is very different. The character is not only given a name, that being Ava Starr, but she is a female. Her dad worked with Hank Pym on quantum physics, but the technology was deemed too dangerous and shut down. This led to Pym smearing Elias Starr's name, which led to Elias starting up the project again in secret. However, just as predicted, it was dangerous, things went wrong, and exploded. Everyone inside the building, including Ava's parents, were killed, but she survived, being exposed to the energy and gaining quantum mutation. This power allows Ava to be intangible and invisible, but causes her great pain. S.H.I.E.L.D. took her in to help stabilize her abilities, reduce the pain, and make her an agent, which included giving her a special suit. However, the suit in the comics uses technology that allows him to be intangible and invisible. Now, Yelena may not have joined the Thunderbolts in issue 128, but Ghost did, recruited by Norman Osborn. It's also worth mentioning that Ava Star does not exist in the comics, but her father, Elias Star, does, more commonly referred to as Egghead.
Baba Yaga, come at night, little children sleepy tight.
Jonathan F. Walker always wanted to follow in his father and brother's footsteps by becoming a member of the US Army. When he eventually did, he met and became friends with fellow soldiers Lamar Hoskins, Hector Lennox, and the very Marvel named Jerome Johnson. As John and his friends served 2 uneventful years in the military, the group quit the army for more excitement. So when they were approached by someone working for the power broker, claiming that they could be given a serum that'll enhance their strength, speed, agility, and durability, the 4 friends took it. In order to pay the power broker back, they used their newly gained abilities to excel in the Ultimate Class Wrestling Federation. During this time, they were scouted by talent agent Ethan Thurm, turning them into costumed patriotic crusaders, with John Walker being known as Super Patriot and the others being his Buckies. They travelled the country, promoting what they believed were America's true values, which included discrediting Captain America, believing he was outdated. John even ended up staging a fight with the Buckies so he could look like a hero in front of an audience. Steve Rogers was made aware of this, confronting Walker and telling him that respect should be earned, not faked, which annoyed John. However, Walker was able to have his first real heroic act when publicly defeating Warhead. As this was happening, Steve Rogers was being forced by the Federal Commission on Superhuman Activity to become a government agent or give up his identity as Captain America. With Steve having a different opinion to the government for what the Captain America symbol stood for, Rogers gave up the title. The government then searched for Steve's replacement, where John Walker was selected to become Captain America, with Lamar Hoskins as the new Bucky. As Captain America, John used more violent methods and lacked a moral compass, leading to public outcry. The situation was made worse for Walker when his secret identity was exposed, resulting in the murder of his parents by enemies seeking revenge. This all culminated with the reveal that Red Skull was behind the commission forcing Steve Rogers to give up the Captain America title. When that was all taken care of, they forced John Walker to give the suit and shield back, but Rogers declined. However, as the government didn't want John to continue on as Captain America, Walker self-reflected and thought about what the symbol stood for, so convinced Steve to take out the mantle again, fearing they'll end up giving the identity to someone even worse than him. So with Steve Rogers back as Captain America, John Walker decided to take on the persona of US Agent. There are quite a lot of similarities and differences to what we see in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, where John Walker was first introduced into the MCU. Instead of Steve Rogers giving up his shield to the US government, he gave it to Sam Wilson, but he gave it to the government, not wanting to face the public harassment a black Captain America would receive. The government then gave it to the highly decorated soldier, John Walker. Although, because his genetic skills wasn't enough to defeat enemies, he took a super soldier serum. This enhanced the same abilities as it does in the comics, but also enhanced his emotions, making him more ruthless, and when Lamar Hoskins was killed, Walker sought deadly revenge. The public saw this, leading to the government taking the Captain America title off him. Other notable page and screen differences for John Walker was that his US Agent shield was the one used by Steve Rogers when he wasn't being Captain America, and it's made of vibranium as opposed to being some boring old metal in the MCU. Unlike the comics, his identity was the opposite of a secret on screen, which is the case for most characters. He was also married on screen to Olivia, a character who doesn't exist in the Marvel comics, nor does his kid. And they may not even exist in his MCU life for much longer either, if he doesn't do a better job at fixing those relationships. As for the Thunderbolts, I believe John didn't first join until 2022's Devil's Reign Villains for Hire issue 2, where New York Mayor Wilson Fisk decided to ban vigilantes in New York City and put together a Thunderbolts team to enact this law. Walker asked Fisk to join the team and be its leader, which Wilson agreed to, but little did the Kingpin know, John was working undercover for the FBI to find incriminating evidence on Fisk.
I'll have you know I was actually the official Captain America, so...
Yeah, for like 2 seconds.
Project Sentry is the result of the Canadians' Weapon X program, which provided genetic coding and specialized tanks for test subjects, and the American Super Soldier Serum merging together in an attempt to make a serum 100,000 times more powerful than what was given to Steve Rogers. A couple of decades passed, and during this time, the project was divided up into many divisions to prevent there from being only one person or company overseeing the research. One of those people was the professor at a high school, the same high school attended by the very Marvel named Robert Reynolds. Being a schizophrenic, anxious meth addict, Bob broke into the science lab and stole the serum that the professor had been working on. Instead of getting high off the serum, he instead gained the power of 1,000,000 exploding suns. Over time, his powers manifested into a persona known as the Void, created out of his mental condition. The Void was a shadow of Sentry, manifesting fears into people. His Sentry persona is a hero, but his greatest enemy is the Void side of him. In the MCU, Valentina Allegra de Fontaine was the one who oversaw Project Sentry as a way to create a new symbol for the superhero community. Someone who would answer to her, so she would receive praise by society, effectively allowing a free pass from the government. Bob was a voluntary test subject for Project Sentry, but was unaware of what he was signing up for, just believing it was a chemical that would improve his life, or at worst, give him a high. The movie also delved into his abusive childhood at the hands of his father, but there's no mention of a dad in the comics. However, like the comics, he was a meth addict, had the same power set, Void persona, and costume. Because of the Void's power, Bob went to the very Marvel-named characters Reed Richards and Stephen Strange to help erase his memories about the Sentry persona to prevent the Void from returning. This included erasing the rest of the world's memory of him too. Without going into too much detail, there's also this whole thing with Mastermind and putting his memories into the mind of comic writer Paul Jenkins, who wrote the Sentry's memories into Sentry comic books. On screen, his memory seems to just wipe itself whenever leaving the Void. In both mediums, he's considered to be the most powerful super on Earth. Tony Stark and Reed Richards have even stated that he's the most powerful human being in the universe. The Sentry technically joined the Thunderbolts in 2009's Dark Avengers issue 1, but like I mentioned earlier, that team was under the title The Avengers.
Assemble.
The self-proclaimed founder of the new Avengers in the MCU is Contessa Valentina Allegra de Fontaine. We don't know a lot about her past on screen, and what's seen on page is shrouded in mystery, but both comics and MCU do say that she was a child to Russian parents who were some kind of agents. She's worked for both S.H.I.E.L.D. and Hydra in the comics, being a triple agent, and that sneaky side of her is something we also see on screen. On top of that, Valentina founded the holding company Ox, however, it actually made its first appearance in the Ultimate Comic universe before making its way to the Prime universe and eventually the MCU. As for the Thunderbolts, a life model decoy of her was a part of the Thunderbolts run from 2023, and she was the villain Citizen V in 2025's Thunderbolts Doomstrike. But I imagine the decision to include her in those comics was made when it was determined that she was going to be in the movie. Prior to that, she had no Thunderbolts involvement.
I don't like to repeat myself, so you can just call me Val. But don't call me Val, just keep it in your head.
As for Bucky Barnes, I've already done an entire video on him, which you can check out in the playlist at the end of the video.
Who the hell is Bucky?
Prime Marvel Thunderbolts might be the universe with the team's most appearances, but other notable Thunderbolts across comic universes include the Thunder Monks, who are Thunderbolts but apes. There have been zombies. The Thunderbolt Department in the Spider-Punk universe is the police and fire department created by Norman Osborn. Robert Reynolds was essentially the equivalent of War Machine, known as War Sentry. On Earth 61893, the Thunderbolts was a team of heroes against the Registration Act during the Civil War, consisting of Goliath, Invisible Woman, the Punisher, Spider-Man, and Steve Rogers, who had been stripped of his title as Captain America. There's a Ghost who dated a combination DVD player / fax machine. A Jonathan Walker was a member of the Red Skulls on Earth 6160. There's a universe where every city in the USA has a Captain America, and John Walker was one of them. On Earth 9047, Valentina's long name is even longer. You ready? It's Valentina Rizzoni Anna Maria Alberghetti Cecilia Andretti Rigoletto Morello Allegro D.D. Sharp Joan Fontaine. On Earth 22301, because Sentry is agoraphobic, having a fear of entering open or crowded places, leaving his home, or being in places where escaping is difficult, he went to Agoraphobics Anonymous, but he was either the only one at the meeting or was 9 hours early. Sunny is Sentry Dog, and there's a universe where Sentry worked on a movie based off the events of the Supers Civil War.
Okay, there's Captain America, Iron Man, Black Widow. Whoa, who's that new guy? That's me. I gotta go.
Some notable comic arcs that the Thunderbolts have been a part of include, but not limited to, Civil War, where the Commission of Superhuman Activities enlisted the Thunderbolts to enforce the Superhuman Registration Act, Dark Reign, where Norman Osborn was appointed the head of the Superhuman Initiative and turned the Thunderbolts into the Dark Avengers, and Secret Empire, which involves a Cosmic Cube, a Thunderbolts, and a Steve Rogers, who may or may not be Hydra. As I mentioned earlier, there's been a lot of different leaders of the Thunderbolts, and each of those runs have a unique and interesting take on them.
We are the Thunderbolts!
Can't call ourselves that.
Hey, you want to hear some fun facts about the Thunderbolts?
Yes.
Here are some fun facts about the Thunderbolts. Despite Yelena Belova first appearing in Inhumans Volume 2, Issue 5, written and illustrated by Paul Jenkins and Jay Lee, the character was actually created by Devin Grayson and J.G. Jones for a comic released 3 months later titled Black Widow Issue 1. Yelena Belova is asexual, as referenced in a 2002 comic titled Black Widow Pale Little Spider Issue 2. Contessa Valentina Allegra de Fontaine has actually appeared on screen before making her MCU debut in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, first appearing in the TV movie Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., played by Lisa Reiner. At the beginning of the Thunderbolts Asterix movie, Florence Pugh herself actually performed the jump off the Merdeka 118 in Kuala Lumpur, which is the second tallest building in the world. When the character of Sentry was created, it was claimed that Artie Rosen had created the character in the early 1960s. When Artie died, his widow found a box containing ideas for Marvel Comics. She then gave this box to Marvel, which was later discovered by Paul Jenkins decades later. Inside was an unreleased comic featuring the Sentry, so Paul decided to officially bring that character to the Marvel Universe in the year 2000. However, it was later revealed that this was all fake. It was just a marketing story made up to create interest around the new character.
You lied to me!
Actors almost cast as Yelena Belova before Florence Pugh were Emma Watson, Saoirse Ronan, Alice Englert, and Darza Zofsky. Sam Claflin was considered for the role of John Walker before Wyatt Russell was cast, but Sam may have a chance to appear as a different MCU character in the future, as Wyatt auditioned for Steve Rogers and got Captain America Light instead. Stephen Ewan was initially cast as Sentry, however, filming was delayed due to the 2023 SAG-AFTRA strike, and the new filming dates conflicted with another project, so unfortunately for him, had to drop out. As for other characters, I don't have any info on who else was considered for those roles, if anyone. I imagine someone like Julia Louis-Dreyfus was just offered her part.
You sure you're really ready for that public-facing role you asked me about?
The Thunderbolts is one of Marvel's most interesting teams. Even though we've seen the Thunderbolts characters put to screen many times, they've had significantly more stories told in the comics. While there are some major differences from page to screen for them all, and elements one medium has covered and the other hasn't, there are also many similarities. Despite this, I think all the actors do a great job to capture the essence and complexities of their character. However, overall, I would say the most comic-accurate member of the Thunderbolts put to screen is probably Yelena. But, like most Marvel characters who have appeared in many comics, they've had time to evolve and change, so the movies use this to their advantage and create a version that best reflects this in the modern day.
This has makings of team.
Thanks for watching. Let me know in the comments who your favourite member of the Thunderbolts is. And don't forget to absolutely obliterate those like, subscribe and share buttons. I'm just kidding. Only do it with enough force that it registers. I don't want any of you breaking whatever device you're watching this on.